Welcome to the Book Club, the show that spotlights undiscovered authors and their books. Here's your host, John Austin.
Thanks, Lee, and welcome to today's program, and it's a good one. We begin this morning with a fast-paced murder mystery. It's actually kind of a police procedural. The book is What the Altar Boy Heard, and the very talented new author is Dan Price. Dan Price is a retired educator, father of 2 sons, and he lives and writes in Texas. Welcome to the Book Club, Dan.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate you letting me on your program.
Oh, we're delighted to have you here. I've got to tell the listeners this, and I did mention this to Dan. This is a fairly short novel, 150 pages or so, but there is more packed into those pages than most books twice the size. The writing, it's crisp, it's lean, the main characters are very well developed, and the several plot lines are riveting. With that said, Dan, give us a brief synopsis of the book.
Well, it's a story that centers around the suicide of a 12-year-old altar boy and the note that he left. But after an investigation by the police and the church, it's determined that there's no evidence to prove it was anything but a troubled boy's suicide. Of course, you would imagine the parents don't agree with that. But after a year and a half of grieving, the mother dies because of it, and this is the last straw for the father. He decides that anybody that's been involved in this that could have prevented his son's death, or at the very least arrested whoever was responsible, they're going to pay for it. But everything is not as it appears in this story, and I think the readers will find that out.
Yeah, they really will. This really is a terrific book. I want to meet the 2 protagonists, Malcolm McBride and Arnie Buchholz. Tell us about them.
Okay, well, Malcolm is about 6'4", 250-pound lethal weapon as far as the criminals are concerned. He's also brutally honest in his assessment of people and situations. He would be a kind of a guy that if a woman walked up to him and asked, do I look fat in this dress, he would say, "Yes, ma'am, you look like a hippo." So he's very blunt in his assessment. He's also, of course, very loving, compassionate, and loyal friend to his family and, of course, to Arnie. But he holds nothing back.
Okay, there's a very funny encounter in the beginning of the book. There's a traffic jam. Tell us about that. And Arnie Buchholz?
Okay. Well, Arnie's about 5'8", 170 pounds. He's really a carbon copy of Malcolm. They're a perfect match. He's not as tactless and as brutal towards people as Malcolm is, but they fit together perfectly. They have a bond here, of course, that readers will be able to see. That they've developed, of course, being able to protect each other's back, and that allows them to torture and tease each other all the way through the book. So he's a unique individual. Okay,
this is a great twosome, 2 terrific characters. Okay, now there's a very funny encounter with at the beginning of the book in a traffic jam, and they run into that. And tell us about that and the woman Gladys.
Okay, well, I really didn't know where I was going with that. I started with 2 police officers driving down the street, and threw them in a traffic jam, and then I tried to figure out what I was going to do about the traffic jam, and all of a sudden Gladys popped up in my head, and I created a character there I think is very unique. But they try to, of course, get around the traffic jam and find this woman about 90 years old that's got a car that's stalled, and an irate motorist is beating on the hood, so they have to try to deal with him. And then, of course, as they push her car over to the side, as they look at her license, they start an interchange there, I think, which is pretty humorous.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. She starts talking about her husband who's 65 or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now we actually get into the to the meat of the book, and there is a killing, and it's Cardinal Vicente. Tell us about him.
Right. Well, he's the leader of the Catholic Church there in the New York area for about 20 years, and his murder, of course, is going to be brought on by previous events there. The father, of course, of the boy that committed suicide, he has blamed him and many others for this boy's death, and so he's totally unaware of his life being in danger when he's killed here.
Okay, and that's a very interesting killing, and you do something in this book that most people don't, and I think it's very effective. The reader knows early on who the killer is, but they don't know the motive. So let's talk about Gabriel Lindstrom, who is the father that you've been talking about, and he has just basically gone nuts, and he's after anybody that he thinks might have had anything to do with the killing or his son's suicide, what they're calling a suicide. I guess it was a suicide. Okay, then there's a second victim, and that's Frank Popper. Tell us about him and why he was killed.
Well, Frank Popper is the secretary to Bishop Davis, and he, of course, is just in the wrong place at the wrong time. This was another killing, or trying to be a killing by Gabriel Lindstrom, and he leaves, and he ends up spotting Gabriel Lindstrom hiding in the sanctuary there, and he has to be killed because he can't. He's going to reveal his identity there, so he kills him.
Okay, and then there's Bishop Davis, who you just mentioned, but that was who he was after.
Right, he was after Bishop Davis, but he got caught, hiding before Bishop Davis came down.
Right. Okay. Now I want to talk about these are actually you do a really good job with very lean writing in filling out these characters, and in this case we're going to talk about Denise and Cheryl.
Okay, well, of course, Denise is Malcolm's wife, and, he's lost her. They've been divorced, and there's a lot involved in that, but because of his dedication to his job and, he didn't take care of his business at home, and so she has divorced him, and there's still a strong bond between them, and of course, with Cheryl, of course, his daughter.
Okay.
But there's a lot of problems there.
Yeah, that's actually what the next step is. He finds out that, the reader finds out that Cheryl is actually pregnant, and then we meet Larry Brickman. Tell us about him.
Yeah, I felt like I needed to put some adversity in Malcolm's life to kind of give the reader an idea of how relentless and ruthless he can be, as well as protective of his family. So when he finds out that she's pregnant, of course, he demands to know who it is. And then when he finds Larry Brickman, then there's an encounter there with him that kind of gives the reader an idea of how far he would go to protect his family. And then, of course, Brickman wants revenge for the intimidation that Malcolm has given him. And there's a kidnapping that takes place here of Cheryl.
Okay.
And there's, of course, a lot goes on in his efforts to get her back.
Okay. And before that, actually, in between the confrontation with between Larry and Malcolm, Arnie is also attacked in a parking lot of a grocery store, and that gives you some indication of how tough Arnie is. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, Arnie doesn't mess around either. He's just trying to buy groceries, and there's two men that approach him in the parking lot thinking that this is going to be an easy score for them. And, of course, they've made the mistake of attacking a cop here. So they demand money, and, of course, he realizes real quickly when one of them pulls out a knife that he could kill them both if he wanted to, but he makes an effort to try to get them to give up, and they attack him with a knife. He knocks one of them down and then falls to the ground and grabs an ankle holster that he has a gun. And, of course, the other one still is relentless in the thinking that, he can get to Arnie before Arnie can pull the trigger, but that doesn't work either.
Okay. And you're not supposed to take a gunfight or a knife to a gunfight. I think that's...
No, that's kind of not real smart.
Right, okay. So now we have Brickman and his pal, Benny Zamora, who really has just a little part in this book, but they hatch a plan. Actually, Brickman, I guess, hatches the plan to kidnap Cheryl and then get Malcolm and then kidnap them both, or kill them both. And he does actually kidnap Cheryl, and he calls Malcolm, or he calls Malcolm, and says that they've got to meet. Yeah,
of course, his whole purpose there was to get back at Malcolm for what Malcolm had done to him. So he determines that they're going to meet, and of course Malcolm has already informed the lieutenant there that he's not going to let anything happen to his daughter to make a difference what happens. So they give him a small device that's supposed to let them know where he is. It's the shape of a coin. He goes to the meet and has no idea, again, what's going to happen here, but they show up at a warehouse and a boat dock area with a speedboat and make him get in with Cheryl. And then it's pretty obvious what he's going to do. He's going to force them to jump, or force actually Malcolm to push his daughter off in the ocean, and then ties a block to him. Yeah.
Okay, we won't touch. That's a very exciting scene. There are a number of great plots that kind of move in and out of this book, and now we're going to go back actually to the Father Vicente and Popper murders, and we're going to meet now the Reverend Mother Frances Richards. Tell us about her.
Well, she's more or less in charge of the area there where Father Stansel works. She oversees everything, the nuns and so forth. She is dedicated to him. She believes strongly that he is a good person and a very religious and righteous man. And of course, Arnie and Malcolm are drilling her pretty hard about information that they've accumulated about the father and want to know more about it. And she's the rock there that they all hold to there at the church.
Okay, and at one point here, that they then realize that Bishop Davis is in danger because they figure he's going to be on this list, but they suspect that Father Stansel is the killer.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, they think he is, and of course, Gabriel Lindstrom, the father, catches him in the cemetery there as he mourns over the death of the cardinal, and he catches him there and kills Father Stansel, and then of course that ruins their thinking about Stansel being the killer. So they're still at a loss here as to who's doing all this, and the mother. Richards has not figured this out yet herself either.
Okay, so they're back to square one. We're talking to Dan Price about his exciting novel, What the Altar Boy Heard. Okay, now we go forward a little bit, and spring has arrived, and we find out that Cheryl is actually due in 4 months. And then we meet actually Arnie's wife, Maxine, and she is pregnant. And tell us a little bit about Maxine, because she's a great character, and it's kind of a funny scene where all of a sudden she's pregnant.
Well, if my memory serves me, I'm trying to remember. I think Arnie and Malcolm were driving down the street, and he's talking about Cheryl and the baby, and then Arnie just blurts out that Maxine's pregnant. And, of course, they almost have a car wreck because that's something that was not ever going to happen. Maxine didn't want any children. She was in the corporate world trying to move up the corporate ladder, and she and Arnie had already had this talk when they'd first gotten married several years before. And so all of a sudden, that she's pregnant. And, of course, Malcolm wants to know whose baby it is because it's obvious not Arnie's. They give each other a hard time over it.
Yeah, actually,
but she's very, very, very close and loves Arnie.
Okay, and actually, Malcolm at one time actually thinks that it's not Arnie's baby. He wants her to have a blood test. Anyway.
Oh yes,
that was funny.